Don't question my integrity. Don't question my motives. I'm standing for Jersey. And dear God, if you want to come at me that way, you're going to have to take it up with me. Because there's too much on the line right now in America. As people's due process rights and freedom of the speech rights and secret police are running around this country, picking people up off the streets who have a legal right to be here. There's too much going on in this country. When are we going to stand together?
So seemingly out of nowhere, the Democrats are back at it again. They have, for some odd reason, decided to return to this long-standing trend of embarrassing and humiliating themselves through these no kings style of protests. And it's kind of interesting because for a couple of weeks now, they've been a little bit quiet with this type of stuff, right? I'm not sure if they tired themselves out, the money dried up, or maybe they thought to themselves genuinely, I don't know, all of this protesting is probably getting pretty annoying with people. Maybe we should shut up for 2 seconds. Whatever the reason today, for instance, you have the long-awaited return. I know we were all just dying to see, right? Yeah, sure, sarcastic, obviously. Senator Cory Booker come back to give yet another ridiculous, performative, grandstanding, crazy-eyed speech about Donald Trump on the Senate floor. Basically a terrible reboot of old tactics that you'll see is far from alone today. But there you have it. You also have Senator Chuck Schumer, obviously the minority leader, recasting his inner USAID protest. Remember that? Remember, we will win. We will win. Well, today, he's now out there screaming about democracy, giving perhaps the most uninspiring speech of all time. And even, guys, Senator Chris Van Hollen on the same exact day is once again showing up to ICE facilities and getting really mad, as you can see in this hilarious picture, that he is not being allowed in the door. If you're noticing an interesting trend here, that is indeed correct. Basically, out of nowhere today, a bunch of Democrat senators decided to try to recast and reboot a bunch of old tactics. What exactly is the reason? What happened? We'll tell you about that here today, as there might be a little bit of an explanation why there seems to be this internal memo today in the Democrat Party. Hey, we need to show the voters we're doing more, and we have absolutely no creativity, so why not just do what we've been doing? So we'll tell you about it. We'll get into it. First though, folks, as usual, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Subscribing here, guys, is not only the best way to support our work, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And with that said, I think this comes at the backdrop over the weekend of Democrats maybe thinking they found some political footing with I don't know, Epstein or tariffs or economy. And really, as we've shown you time and time again, none of this stuff is really working or landing. The Democrat approval rating is just as bad as ever. And over the weekend, the Wall Street Journal, for instance, broke the news that the Democrats now have their lowest approval rating in 35 years, which must hence explain why all of a sudden, after coming out of the weekend, all these senators who were quiet for a little bit are now like, hold on, try to do something, try to show something. Although I have to say, I'm not sure any of it's going to work, but perhaps that is indeed the reason. The latest polls showing Democrats' approval rating hitting its lowest mark from voters in 35 years. Former chief of staff and advisor to the Biden White House press office, Yemisi Egbewale, joins us now. Yemisi, thanks for joining the program this morning.
Hi, Lawrence. Thanks for having me.
So looking at the polling, it is down to 63% of voters hold an unfavorable view of the Democratic Party. Is this the right direction to be going with the summits?
Well, I think what the polls showed is that both parties are underwater. Democrats are just a little bit deeper. I think the best way for Democrats to kind of dig out of this hole is to really stop with the fear-mongering on Trump. I think voters see the president every single day, and fear of him isn't a strategy. It's at this point just an excuse for not having a broader plan. And for a lot of those young folks at the summit, I know that they're excited, but being young, fresh, and new isn't something to go off of, right? The David Hoggs of the world would have you believe that if you're 25, you can just run for office. But unfortunately, what we're seeing with a lot of young folks is not a lot of policy direction and more just messaging on TikTok and on Twitter and things like that. Deja Fox, 25-year-old activist, social media star, ran in the 7th District of Arizona. She ran against Adelita Grijalva. She got 20% of the vote. Adelita got 62%. And so I think if the party wants to move in a direction that voters can trust, we have to do less on fear and more on solutions.
Okay, well, minor correction there. The Democrat Party is not just a little bit behind the Republicans in terms of approval rating. Like, she's true, both parties are underwater. But the Republican Party's approval was about in the 40s. The Democrats are in the 20s. Okay, so they're massively behind. That's not like, oh, like 2 to 3 points. No, we're talking 20-point difference. That said, she does actually make some genuinely decent points in that, which is to say that all of the Trump derangement syndrome strategies are not working. This is all they have, right, is fear-mongering. And of course, the genuine question is begging, okay, does that really work when people have known Donald Trump for over a decade now as a political figure alone, and he won the popular vote the 3rd time around? Is that very convincing? No, absolutely not, right? And of course, clearly it is the case that people have stopped buying it. They've tuned it out. I've long compared the Democrat Party to the boy who cried wolf in the sense that, like, everything is fascism, everything's 2025, Project 2025, all this stuff, that people are just like, whatever, right? They just shake their head, roll their eyes. Now, with all of that in mind, where she genuinely is laying out a good point, fear-mongering is not a vision. The Democrat Party has no vision. I cannot tell you, for instance, what they stand for. For instance, on one hand, they claim to be the party of, like, classical liberal leftism, working class, but then at the same time, they're against Trump's tariff policies, even though that used to be pro-working class back in the day. Same with immigration. Are they like this neoliberal corporate party? Are they supposed to be Nobody knows. The Democrat Party has no identity besides being a coalition of people who just simply oppose Trump. There's a reason why you have, like, neocons and communists basically coalitioning together. It makes no sense. So yes, that is a genuine point to be had. But with all of that in mind, I guess the central question here is, do you think, as finally someone, by the way, in Democrat Party circles is spelling it out for them, this is the real reason why you can't get anywhere politically. It's not that you're not screaming loud enough about Trump. It's not that you're not fighting hard enough. You're actually fighting too hard for the wrong reasons. You're just being these, like, hysterical crybaby lunatics, and nobody's taking you seriously. So with all of that in mind, I guess you got to ask the question, do you think Democrat politicians are learning from that, or they're actually capable of presenting a real vision or anything forward besides, Donald Trump is bad, he's so horrible? Well, the answer is, of course, no, because as we so often cover, these people never learn their lessons. They actually absorbed all of the wrong lessons from 2024, because many of these people just think, we didn't fight hard enough, or if Kamala Harris just made a TikTok and went on Joe Rogan, that would have made all the difference. Like, these people literally don't get it. And with all of that in mind, I want you to take a listen here to their response, their political response. And we're going to start with the speech today by Senator Cory Booker, another deranged lunatic speech on the Senate floor, where he basically diagnoses the problem as, again, all of these, like, left-wing leaning institutions kowtowing to Trump. And to make a long story short, he basically has this just crazy mental breakdown on the Senate floor. So let's tune in and see how the Democrats are responding to this news.
The Democratic Party needs a wake-up call. I see law firms bending a knee to this president, not caring about the larger principles, that those free speech rights, that you could take on any client. Why are you bending the knee? I see universities that should be bastions of free speech bending at the knee to this president. I see businesses taking late-night talk show hosts off the air because they dare to insult a president. I see people who want mergers suddenly think that they have to pay tribute to this president. And what are the very people here elected to defend the Constitution of the United States saying, oh, well, today, let's look the other way and pass some resources that won't go to Connecticut, that won't go to Illinois, that won't go to New York, that will go to the states he likes. That is complicity with an authoritarian leader who is trashing our Constitution. It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines. And when it comes to the safety of my state being denied these grants, that's why I'm standing here. Don't question my integrity. Don't question my motives. I'm standing for Jersey. I am standing for my police officers. I'm standing for the Constitution, and I'm standing for what's right. And dear God, if you want to come at me that way, you're going to have to take it up with me, because there's too much on the line right now in America. As people's due process rights and freedom of the speech rights and secret police are running around this country, picking people up off the streets who have a legal right to be here. There's too much going on in this country. When are we going to stand together for principles that I just heard that we're agreed with? When are we going to stand together? If we don't stand as Democrats, we deserve to lose. But if we stand united, if we stand strong, if we stand with other people, if we tell with a chorus of conviction in America what this president is doing is wrong, if we stand up and speak that way, dear God, we will win. Like all of those people at our ancestors who joined hands together and said, we shall overcome. No, not on my watch. I'm protecting Jersey today. I'm protecting our Constitution today.
Okay, well, there you have whatever that was. Okay, you first of all start off with the falsehoods and disingenuous statements, trying to essentially claim that, oh, when Democrats had power, they never did things like that. They never tried to force institutions and corporations to bend to their will, as if that's not what they've been doing for decades now. But, Trump, obviously, whatever. But, okay, with all of that in mind, I still have to come here and say, first of all, who cares? What is this performative grandstanding? Is it, I'm going to stand up and fight? Everyone's just kind of watching in silence, like, why is this lunatic screaming, right? So, again, I once again want to ask Cory Booker, who cares? What is the point of these ridiculous types of speeches? You say, don't question my integrity, when you're clearly just trying to do stupid PR stunts to launch a 2028 campaign that everyone knows. But okay, all of that in mind, the central point here is what? He is once again repeating the thesis, as you heard there at the end, that if Democrats just speak louder, if they just scream more, if they just communicate that they don't like Trump and here's why Trump is bad, if we do that clearly, the American people will listen to us, right? And this, again, is like the Tim Walz, all of these people's theory is that Democrats are losing because they're not fighting hard enough against Trump. To which I once again say, okay, yeah, because you guys have not done that for 10 years. Do you not understand this? For 10 years, you've been hysterical. You've been saying Trump's destroying this, he's destroying that. It's actually the problem, I would argue. People are just like, because they don't listen, because it's the same thing over and over again. And even in the case of Cory Booker, this is literally watching the same thing over and over again, because this is like the third or fourth time now you've gotten on the Senate's floor and tried to create a performative scene. But with all of that in mind, again, there seems to be a response to something internally definitely going on at the party. Oh, we got to fight harder. We got to scream louder. That'll definitely work. Because this comes today at the same exact time where Senator Chuck Schumer decided to crawl out of whatever hole he's been hiding in for the past month or so to launch a protest. And apparently this was a voting rights protest in response to the Republican redistricting efforts that we have covered. As we long reiterated before, Democrats are screaming gerrymandering while they themselves gerrymander to ridiculous extents in states like Illinois and Nebraska. But fundamentally, what is this about? It's because they're already heading into the midterms, the Democrats here, as a party that should be able to win at least the House easily, given the historical precedent, incumbent, all that stuff, right? They're the opposition party. But of course, they're struggling. And why are they struggling? Because they got weak leadership. They got weak candidates. They have a weak message, obviously, what they stand for. Their approval rating is terrible. You look at the Cook Political Report, the map, the toss-ups. They're not really trending in a great direction. Maybe barely win the House, not convincing, definitely up in the air. So with all that in mind, that is precisely why the difference of maybe 5 to 7 seats, they're massively panicking about, because they understand that could make the difference. So probably another piece of information as to why the Democrats are now panicking in the streets today, because they're like, oh shoot, we might really actually lose the midterms, even though Trump is supposedly so bad. And so with all that in mind, Chuck Schumer apparently taking the memo, trying to show, look, I actually am a good leader. I'm actually willing to stand up and fight against Trump. Well, take a listen to how that went today and ask yourself if you're exactly inspired or moved or understood the Democrat communication, right? We just need to be effective communicators. Well, here you go.
It's been clear. When we fight for democracy, when we protect democracy, we got to fight fire with fire. We're not going to stand idly by, as Maya said. We're not going to let them revert to Jim Crow. And if you don't think they want to revert to Jim Crow, just look what they did in the SAVE Act, which went back to took Jim Crow for the whole nation. By so making it hard, they said you need ID, and they made it so hard to show ID that probably half the people in America couldn't vote. We wouldn't let it pass. Democrats, they needed our vote. They went to court. Many of us, Durbin, myself, and others, were lead plaintiffs, and we beat them in court. But it shows why we need legislation. Because these guys are undoing everything in every way they can. They don't want poor people to vote. They don't want people of color to vote. They don't want Democrats to vote. They don't believe in democracy. We do. And so we see what they do to people everywhere. A heinous act of legislation, great ugly betrayal, taking away people's health care, taking food out of the mouths of hungry children to get billionaires a tax break. Shame on them. I can't believe it. No principle, no conscience. Shame. 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 When American people are angry, and it's righteous anger, they have made it harder to vote throughout the decades. The Republican Party now accentuated by the awful MAGA group.
So first of all, wow, just so much energy, right? Aren't you just so moved and inspired by the effective communication skills of Chuck Schumer and the Democrats? Wow, the momentum is truly on their side. You can hear it in his voice. Shame! Shame! But, all of that in mind, even on the substance, I love the claim, first of all, that, wanting voter ID, which, by the way, is supported, is favored by 81% of Americans, is somehow anti-democracy, it is racist, and it is literally a return to Jim Crow. Okay, again, an idea that's supported by 81% of America. These people say things like that and then wonder why their approval rating is underwater, wonder why they lost the election. And instead of, it's so interesting, right? Instead of the takeaway being, oh, look at a poll like this, look what I'm talking about, maybe my ideas are just unpopular. No, they take the opposite conclusion. They say, no, I'm just not speaking loud enough. I'm not being loud enough. I'm not being crazy enough. If I just say like 10 more times to more people on more podcasts, if I just go on Theo Vaughn or Joe Rogan or something and say voter ID is Jim Crow, then people will believe me. No, that's not how this works, right? But okay, all of that in mind, that is the desperate attempt today by Chuck Schumer to show the Democrat voter base and maybe someone else in America that like, hey, I'm doing stuff. Hey, I'm fighting for something. Now, with all of that in mind, we have to also talk today about the return of none other than Senator Chris Van Hollen, who himself is trying to go on the personal quest to lift Democrat approval. And he did so today by leading a Democrat delegation into a protest outside of an ICE facility in Baltimore, which I'm going to fully assume they did not show up for. They did not, get pre-clearance or anything. And as you can see, here they are sitting there being denied entry. And I really have to sit there and say, is this supposed to look good? Is this supposed to be a positive photo op? I mean, again, probably one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen. But there you go. See, you see Chris Van Hollen. You got this, I think, congressman right here. What an amazing picture. I mean, that's the Democrat Party, right? Just looking weak and feckless and hopeless and just like, old, right? There you go. This is how you show the voters that you're fighting, right? And with that said, here's the video of the man himself, right? The margarita drinker with Kilmar Bego Garcia, once again, recasting his old strategies to humiliate himself outside an ICE building for like the third or fourth time by now. Okay, take a listen.
So I'm here in front of the Fallon Federal Building in Baltimore, and we just tried to go up and visit one of the ICE facilities in this building that is used essentially to house people who have been taken out of their neighborhoods in Maryland. We wanted to go see for ourselves because we've learned both through earlier visits by staff, but also through the testimony of people who've been detained here about the inhumane conditions. And the fact that we were locked out, literally locked out, despite the welcome sign, shows that they don't want us to know. The Department of Homeland Security, Donald Trump, don't want the American people or the people of Maryland to know what is happening behind closed doors in this holding center where they're detaining people. Finally, somebody did come out, person who's the acting director. I actually read to her what the law requires. The law is crystal clear that members of Congress, on behalf of their constituents, are allowed to go visit and look at these kind of holding facilities where people are being detained. And despite the clear meaning of this law, she was told by higher-ups not to let us in. And the bottom line is, the reason they don't want us to go in is because they don't want us to see what's in there or talk to people who are being detained. We are going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing for transparency because you need transparency in order to have accountability. Bad things happen behind closed doors. We need to let the sunlight in, and we will keep at it.
No, Chris, what you need to do is start learning how to make an appointment. Because I'm going to venture to guess he is practicing the same exact strategy he did when he went to El Salvador to have margaritas with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. He shows up to this maximum security prison without any pre-clearance, without any notice, without any, notification or permission to do so. He shows up to the prison. He demands, please let me in to see Kilmar. They're like, no, this is a high security prison, and who the heck are you? We're not going to do that. Then he goes, and by the way, they explicitly tell him, you have to make an appointment with the embassy and get pre-clearance first. Then he goes outside and has a press conference, claiming, of course, that this is censorship, it's political, he's being persecuted. And meanwhile, El Salvador is telling him, you didn't make an appointment, that's why. The reason I say it's the same thing going on here is because we've seen countless cases of Democrat politicians, when they do it correctly, get plenty of access into Alligator, Alcatraz, and many other facilities, because yes, it is within their congressional oversight. But guess what? You can't just walk into a detention center or a high security facility without arranging things first. They have to figure out security. They have to make sure they can verify who you are, that you're coming, all of these things. So yeah, guess what, right? You have to actually call ahead of time. And of course, they never do that because this is the exact point. They literally just show up to have their stupid photo op and claim censorship. And maybe that would, of course, work if not for the fact that the photo op itself looks stupid, right? I'm not sure this is exactly again, are they supposed to look good? Are we supposed to look at the bad guys here? Because I think that's pretty freaking hilarious when Van Hollen's like, hey, let me in, boom, close the door. Same as Maxine Waters. None of this behavior, as I'm going to repeat, makes these Democrat politicians look any better. But to put true icing on the cake, here you have Senator Chris Van Hollen today, once again, after the margaritas, after the human trafficking indictments, total normal stuff that Maryland fathers do, apparently. You have Senator Chris Van Hollen yet again still going out there and defending Mr. Kilmar Abrego Garcia to this day, despite everything that we've learned ever since the original incident. Truly, again, I wonder why the party has such a low approval rating when they're defending, people like that. Okay.
This holding cell has also become a place where the Trump administration's plan to violate people's constitutional right to due process has been front and center. This is the place where they held Kilmar Abrego Garcia before they shipped him down to CCOT, the notorious prison in El Salvador. This is where they denied him his due process rights. Then, of course, a 9-0 Supreme Court decision called out that illegality and said they had to facilitate his return. But this office, which we wanted to go see, has become a critical holding point for people who are being swept off the streets without due process and people who do not have any kind of violent history and pose no threat to public safety. But here they're treated inhumanely.
Okay, with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts. I mean, what do you think of the Democrat efforts to fight back? How's the resistance going? Again, really posing the question, what happened? Why'd you just take a month off from this stuff and then suddenly you're just back to recasting all the old tricks? No creativity whatsoever, but you know how it goes. So with that said, let me know your thoughts. Do you think these new campaigns will be effective? Do you think if Cory Booker just gives 10 more speeches on the Senate floor, suddenly Trump's going to be impeached? Do you think Chris Van Hollen having more margaritas with illegal aliens is going to change? I don't know. But okay, truly, with that said, let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.